Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I thought I'd do a video on the top contributions from an ex-Beatle post-split to other people's records. I'm going to include their former bandmates in this list, although I've tried to vary it up a bit and not be too one-dimensional in that respect, because I suppose all of the top 10 could have consisted with them working on each other's records, but I've got a few in my collection which are not that, which are also worthy of considerable mention. So in reverse order, I've got Harrison's contribution to this Ringo single from 1971. Both sides, It Don't Come Easy and early 1970, produced by George Harrison. George Harrison is playing guitar on both, and one hears that he had a hand in writing this song, although if that's true, he's generously given the songwriting credit to Richard Starkey on his own. But by all accounts, he did have a lot of say in the writing of the song, and actually there's a demo of George playing this song before Ringo tried the vocal with George on lead vocals, so that pretty much confirms it in my opinion. But anyway, officially it's a Ringo composition, but either way, George is all over it, and very generous of him to support his colleague during this early time post-split, because it can't have been easy for Ringo, because he didn't have the songwriting talent that the other three had, so maybe a little harder. The split hit him a bit harder than the others. Number 9, we've got Paul McCartney's contribution to this album, Brave New World. And he's credited only via a pseudonym, Paul Ramon, which was the pseudonym he'd used back in the early days of the Beatles before they made it big. And he's basically, I think it was recorded at Olympic Studios. Recording engineer Glyn Johns. Yeah, Olympic was his favourite studio, but I think they were there to do a session for something for Abbey Road, like You Never Give Me Your Money or something, and they ended up having a huge argument over the Alan Klein situation, and the 3 other Beatles stormed out of the building, leaving Paul on his own, and Paul was left, and then Steve Miller was recording in the same studio, and Paul just joined him for that session, and the song My Dark Hour was the result, and Paul's on superb backing vocals. I think he's playing drums, maybe bass as well. But very distinctive contributions from Paul if you check that one out. Was number 9. Number 8, we've got George's contribution to the second track on this album, which is called Round and Round, which is a pretty catchy song. It was a single, didn't do anything, but very distinctive slide guitar solo in the middle. Played twice actually, so two verses basically playing the solo, and it's just wonderful. It's got George written all over it, and that's not a very well known record, but you could probably find it on YouTube, or I'm not sure if it's on Spotify, probably not, but so that was Splinter. Number 7, and George also played on a whole lot of other Splinter stuff, but the first album in particular, The Place I Love, I think it's called, the album. We've got George Harrison turning up on Mick Fleetwood's album The Visitor and playing a superb slide guitar solo on this version of Walk a Thin Line, which is the Lindsey Buckingham song from Tusk a couple of years before. And again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this whole album, although it's got some nice stuff on it, like You Weren't in Love and stuff. But Walk a Thin Line, if you can find that version, check that one out, because it's definitely worthy of investigation. Number 6, we've got Paul's contribution to Mary Hopkins' Goodbye hit single. I mean, I could have also picked Those Were the Days because he produced that, but Goodbye he wrote, and very generously just gave it away to Mary, because this song was a late Beatles classic ballad a la White Album, and with a really nice tune, and the Beatles could have made something of it. Maybe they thought it was too sentimental or something, so he gave it to Mary, and Mary does a lovely version of it. But just on the recent Abbey Road box set, there's a version of Paul doing his demo of Goodbye, so check that out. And I think he's playing guitar on the song as well. He's certainly producing it. Number 5, we've got Lennon's contribution to the song Fame on this album, and this album is, if you've watched my Bowie rankings, I had to leave it out of the top 12 because it hasn't aged particularly well for me as an album, but the track Fame as well as the title track are both standouts, and co-written by Bowie, Lennon and Carlos Alomar, the guitarist, Bowie's guitarist. And it's a pretty funky track, and Lennon definitely puts his stamp on it, and his character is all over that song along with David Bowie's as well, and it's a good collaboration. One just wishes they'd done more. Lennon also plays the guitar on Bowie's version of Across the Universe on the same album. Number 4, we've got John Lennon's contribution to more or less the whole album, really. He produced the whole album. Some tracks work better than others. The version of Subterranean Homesick Blues, the Dylan track, doesn't work quite so well, but the 2 tracks which really made this make the list here are the version of Save the Last Dance for Me, which is just glorious, and the version of Many Rivers to Cross, the old Jimmy Cliff number, and that Many Rivers to Cross features a lovely string arrangement which formed the basis for the string arrangement for Number 9 Dream from Walls and Bridges later that year, the John song. And he's a wonderful use of strings throughout that song, and the combination of those strings and Nielsen's tortured voice is just sublime. It's a little bit reminiscent of Plastic Ono Band, the vocal, but the strings make it kind of serene. And I've been playing this track a lot recently. Lennon talks about it in the Andy Peebles interview 2 days before he died. He's obviously quite proud of it, I think. I mean, it didn't do much in terms of chart action, but check it out. That's number 4. Number 3, we've got Ringo Starr's contribution to the whole of this album. He's drumming on this album, and he was the perfect drummer for these songs, which were not complicated. They just required a steady backbeat, and Ringo provides that to perfection. And whether it's a slow song like Mother or a faster song like I Found Out, the rhythm section here with Ringo and Klaus Vormann is perfect for the album, and that's why it's at number 3. Ringo should be proud of that, and I think he is. And number 2, I've got George Harrison's contribution to this album, which was prominent on the tracks Give Me Some Truth and How Do You Sleep, with those superb guitar solos on those 2 tracks, but also superb guitar work on Oh My Love on side 2, and a lovely slide guitar solo on Crippled Inside on side 1, and some more slide work on I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. So I think John made a smart move to bring George Harrison in for those Imagine sessions, because he certainly lifts it to a magical level musically. They're working really well together, and that's number 2. Number 1, I've chosen the Ringo album just because I've got 3 contributions from all of his ex-colleagues, just really wanting to do the best for him. And all 3 of them lift this album, from Lennon's opener, I'm the Greatest, which was the nearest thing to a Beatles reunion we came, with George, John and Ringo in the studio together in Los Angeles with Richard Perry and Billy Preston. So that's a great opener to the album. George is stamping his mark all over this album, from the single Photograph and its B-side, Down and Out, superb guitar solo on that, which was on the CD version of this album. And then he wrote the song Sunshine Life for Me, and then he co-wrote the song You and Me, Babe, with Mal Evans at the end. And Paul McCartney contributes 6 O'Clock, the song, which is a lovely melody, a la style of Red Rose Speedway, similar time, but came out a few months before, but more in style with that album than Band on the Run, which came out the same month as this. And then he's playing the mouth sax solo on You're 16. So what was nice about this album is all the bitter feuding of How Do You Sleep and Back Off Boogaloo and Ram and all that stuff had receded. They were friends, and they were playing, all turned up to play on Ringo's album, and all showing their musicianship and songwriting ability. And it was pretty heartwarming. Well, I wasn't around at the time, but even looking back on it, it must have been heartwarming to see the Beatles friends again, both musically and spiritually and otherwise. So this was my top 10 contributions of our next Beatle to someone else's record. Hope you enjoyed it. No problem if you disagree or have others. It's my opinion. Thank you for watching. See you next time.